You argue in one of your books that during the Revolution, women's daily lives changed enormously. Talk a little bit about that and its relationship to the changing ideology.
Men went off to war. English supplies vanished. There's this horrible movie that I forbid my students to watch, 1776. The only real moment in it is when Abigail Adams says to her husband, "Pins, John, pins." All these manufactured products, not just cloth, but salt. They had no salt coming in. And that's how you preserved meat for the winter. So you get women who were sharing recipes and letters to one another about how to use walnut ash to preserve meat. Probably tasted terrible, but that was one way that they could preserve food. So you begin to get almost life becomes even more primitive because these supplies that you used to have vanished. But largely the men went off and the women were left in charge of the farms. I always get students who say, boy, they must have loved, that must have been liberating. Of course it wasn't for most women. Most women were pregnant when their husbands left. They had children every 3 years, so they had a toddler, they had a 6-year-old, and their houses weren't child-proofed, and there were still kids on farms who fell into standing pools of water and drowned, so you had to watch your children at all times. It's not that much fun to be pregnant, you know, and be trying to do all the things in the household you were supposed to do. And now they were also in charge of the farm. So for most women, this was a tremendous burden that they managed miraculously to do, because if they hadn't been able to do it, when the men came home from the war, there would be literally nothing to come home to. Women took over blacksmith shops. They took over printing presses. They moved into male roles, and especially in New England, there was already an ideology that made this, did not produce a kind of tension about roles in women, and that was acting as a surrogate husband. You were a deputy husband. Your husband had to go off to court in Boston, and he was going to be away. You stepped in and took over his job. But it was really, I think, for many women, exhausting. Plus, armies tended to be marching back and forth over your property, and in addition to rape, there was, the soldiers would come into the house and empty it of furniture so that they could build bonfires to keep themselves warm. So this is a really difficult time, and that explains, I think, to a great extent, why when the war ended, a lot of women said, great, you're home, you take your job and I'll take my job.
But what was in it for them? In other words, you know, we understand, you know, especially why menfolk opposed British rule, opposed mercantilism, and so on. Why did women? Why were they patriots, or were they patriots?
Yes,
and
this is, I think, the most radical thing about the American Revolution was the politicization of women. How quickly it happened, and how extensive it was. All these boycotts that forced England to take back, repeal its laws, those were possible because women joined those boycotts. We won't buy tea, we won't buy cloth, we're going to spin our own Liberty cloth. That's what they called it. You know, the homespun was called Liberty cloth. They were virtually instantly politicized. Ministers who had been telling women for decades upon decades, this is not your business. What happens in what, just for a shorthand, we'll call the public sphere, not your business, are suddenly giving sermons saying, the liberty of your colony is in your hands. You must support resistance to tyranny. And women did. And they not only did it because my husband told me to, or because my minister told me, they start publishing in newspapers their statements that they are not going to drink tea. Of course, I have to explain to my students, coffee was not really the beverage of choice, tea was. We're not going to drink tea. We're going to boycott tea. And they put in their statement, we are doing this as patriots. We are doing this as daughters of liberty. In essence, we're not doing this because our husbands told us to. And this is in every colony in the Union. The Edenton women are from little town in North Carolina. Their pledge not to drink tea is the illustration in virtually every textbook, because an anti-American British cartoon shows the impact of women being politicized. The women are all very masculine looking, and the children are eating out of the dog's bowl, and this is the anarchy that's going to happen if women become involved in politics. But they were. They wrote poems in the newspaper saying, you wussy men, go enlist in the army right now. It's your duty to do that. We are not going to marry you. New York women said, I refuse to get engaged to a man who hasn't signed a pledge to boycott British goods. You know,
wow.
They were really politically, and they were aware. When you call yourself a daughter of liberty, you know, you may not understand the entire global issues, but you know what you're fighting for.